So as most of you are aware, Oregon voters supported ballot measure 98 in November of 2016. Because of this, school districts are now allocated funding to support career and technical programs, access to college level and college prep courses, and dropout prevention strategies. Many districts are utilizing a portion of their funding to hire graduation coaches in support of dropout prevention and on-time graduation. In our Douglas Education Service District, Roseburg, Glide, Sutherland, and Camas Valley school districts are working together to strengthen graduation coaching in their individual districts. We attended a training and networking session at Willamette ESD back in October and are meeting regularly at the ESD to share information and ideas in support of helping students to graduate on time. So if any of you out there have graduation coaches or are interested in getting involved in that group, just get a hold of me. Today I'm with Rob Coulson, Roseburg High School's graduation coach. RHS started their program during the 2017-2018 school year and have had great success. So I've asked Rob here today to share his experience with us. Welcome, Rob.
Thank you.
So let's start and just jump in with the first question. Why did Roseburg High School create the graduation coaching position?
Well, the big thing is that we've been reading all of the research coming out of Chicago Public Schools talking about the importance of freshmen getting off to a really strong start, and that if they do get off to that strong start, they're much more likely to graduate high school on time. So the goal of the program is to kind of build relationships with kids, help them through that first year, and then kind of gradually kind of back off and let them fly once they've gotten the air underneath them.
All right. Thank you. So how did you get the program started a year ago?
So I came in kind of toward the beginning of last year with just kind of some goals of, hey, build some relationships with kids, help them get through. But this was kind of the end of a larger system. And that's really important to know, that if you just hire a graduation coach and just let them go and expect things to change, it's going to be a really uphill battle. The reason why we've had success with this program is that it's one more part of a larger thing. We have small learning communities for all of our freshman students, and then from there, that is a really great funnel to start working with me for students who are slipping through those cracks, and lets me start kind of building some relationships with those guys. And then the big thing is kind of having some versatility. So in addition to having study hall, in addition to having weekly meetings with students, in addition to helping them with organization, having somebody who's going to be able to kind of go through and be able to help students with just about any subject at any time of the day.
So it sounds like a real team approach.
It's very much a team approach. This is too big of a thing to do on your own.
Okay. So walk us through what a typical day for you looks like, Rob, as the graduation coach.
Sure. So I'll be meeting with kids throughout the day. I try to meet with my students about once a week. If I'm honest though, it tends to be about every week and a half or so. And that's a temperature check, find out what's going on in their classes, what's working, what's not working, and try to make adjustments from there. In addition to that, I'd be looking at the latest data, especially when it comes to grades, find out who's doing really well and making sure that I acknowledge that, and then also who's needing a little bit of a boost and a little bit of maybe extra motivation. I'll talk with teachers, find out what's going on from their perspective, find out what's happening in their classes and how I can support students from that perspective. And then I actually have a study hall every day at lunchtime and after school for students to be part of. And I'm very intentional about scheduling that with students, and I actually will send a note out before study hall to help those students remember to make sure that they make it.
Okay. Sounds like a full-time job and a half.
It is.
So you mentioned building relationships with kids a couple of times already early in this interview. So talk to us about how you do that. What techniques do you use?
So the most important thing is active listening, and really making sure that you're kind of speaking back to what they're saying. So when you're asking them, hey, what's going on in your classes, you're going to get a lot of, I don't know. And then kind of giving them some options like, well, so are you experiencing this, and letting them kind of slowly get out what they need to get out, because if students can be successful, they will be. So it's trying to find out what's happening right at this moment that's stopping them from being successful. And that's kind of what the relationship starts with. In addition to that, really being active at finding some positivity. Students who probably been struggling for years and years and years, they really don't believe that they can do this. And so one of the first things you need to do is find something that student has done well, legitimately well, and then compliment them. I always try to find reasons to call home with a positive message, because most of the time when that happens, the parents get excited and the student gets excited, and they come back wanting a little bit more of that, and that's how you kind of slowly start building the snowball. I try to talk to students about things outside of school, and just letting the student know that we're all human, we all have likes and dislikes, we all have things that we're wanting, and then just being really open and honest as much as possible. I was not a great high school student, and so really kind of talking about that and what my journey was, and being vulnerable with them really can make a huge difference and let them know that they're not alone.
Cool. So can we get into some specifics about other staff that are involved and what their roles are at Westburg?
Sure. So we have small learning communities. So every freshman has a science teacher, a PE teacher, and an English teacher that will have basically all in common. So we have the entire freshman class divided into 5 groups. And those 3 teachers will meet about those students. They'll have all the same kids about once a month. And so when they do have some time, and they will basically take a half day sub and sit down and actually go over F data with students, go over A data with students, bring in kids who have really turned things around, compliment them, work with students who are struggling, come up with a plan to help them out. I often sit in on those meetings and as a resource to them, and it's actually a great way for me to make contact with students, because they already know their teachers oftentimes before I can get there, so it's a really good kind of entree into what it is that I do. In addition to that, counselors, administrative staff are all hugely important in supporting the student, because the more people that you have who can help the students, the better, and trying to kind of orchestrate how everybody can move in concert in support of the student is really important. And really at the end of the day, without the teachers' support, without teachers doing an excellent job in helping students turn this around, you can't get anywhere. So it really is a team approach.
All right, thank you. And then about the students that you work with, how do you select those students, or how does the team select those students?
Sure. So at the very beginning of the year, and we actually just did it for next school year coming up,
Okay.
we have early warning system that was actually funded by Measure 98 initially. And that is going to helps us examine what's going on with students in 8th grade and what students we need to be really keeping an eye on when they come up to us as freshmen. We really look at behavior, grades, and attendance. And if you have a student who is pinging on all 3 of those categories, then that's somebody that I'm going to need to connect with right away. And so that's kind of the first kind of cut to start looking at students. From there, it's very fluid. Because what you're going to find is that there's some students who, despite they just might have had a bad year for whatever reason, and they're okay. And so after working with them for a few weeks, you go, you know what, this student's okay. I'm going to just kind of let them do their thing. And you're going to find, well, there's some students that, man, well, I had no idea that this was going to be this way. So you have to be very flexible about, okay, I'm going to bring this student on because they need the help. So every grade report, I actually look at the entire freshman class and make a list of students that I'm wanting to connect with. And then I actually will start talking to their teachers and going, hey, is this just a temporary blip? Is this something I need to be concerned with? Is this something you would like my assistance with? And kind of with that, that's my caseload. And it's always shifting and kind of moving a little bit.
All right. Are there pitfalls that you would warn people new to graduation coaching about? Not necessarily mistakes that you've made, but things you've heard about, or?
So I think the first thing is to be realistic about what the expectations of the program are. It is incredibly helpful, but it isn't going to solve everything all at once. It's going to take some time to really get up off the ground and get going. So as far as success for us, we had about a 5% bump last year in our freshman on track data. Some of that is the graduation coaching, but a lot of that's also the other systems that were already kind of in place when we got started I think it's really important to find the right person. The person that you're going to have is going to have to be really patient, because these are kids who historically have struggled, and they're going to need to be able to kind of roll with the punches a little bit. They're going to need to be able to work in a wide variety of different subjects at any given time. And they're going to need to be a strong relationship builder, not only with students, but also with staff, because you're going to be needing the assistance of teachers every single day in order for this program to be successful. And I think the most important thing is, just because the student needs help, that's not a good reason to lower expectations. The higher the expectations, those need to stay the same. But you still need that, but what you're going to be looking to do is to remove barriers so that those expectations can be met.
Okay. You mentioned parents earlier and enjoying making phone calls to parents, and I can see how that's one way that you build relationships with parents. What are some other things that you do?
So definitely positive calls home is the number one thing that I do. Parent conferences, I try to meet with parents when I can. In addition to that, before breaks, I do what are called care packages. So if I have students who are missing work, throughout the year, I literally gather every assignment that teachers hand out. So I'll go to talk to teachers about once a week, gather the work for the week, and I just kind of keep that in a file so I can make copies of it. Going into Thanksgiving, going into Christmas, going into just happened for spring break, I actually will go through for every single student and make a packet of work for them to come to have. I will deliver that or have the student come and pick it up, and then I immediately call the parent to let them know that they have it. And that does a couple of things. One, it lets the parent know that there is work for the student to do, that it needs to happen. But it also allows me a chance to start building a relationship with the parents, so that way when there's something going on, we're not strangers anymore, and that they know I'm trying to help them because we just had this one thing that was helpful for the student.
All right, awesome. One of the things that we've talked about informally, Rob, is soft skills, organizational skills, that so many of these kids don't have, and you discovered that when you started to work with them. So how do you teach soft skills to kids?
So I think that the number one soft skill that is really important to start teaching the students is just how to organize their backpacks, their binders, their homework, these sorts of things. So one of the things I do is during our my weekly, half-weekly meetings is I try to do organization checks. So I'll sit down with a student who is struggling with organization, and the first time we'll go through their backpack and we'll set them up with kind of a pretty simple organization system. And then we check back and we try to repair it about once every week and a half, 2 weeks, to make sure that they're still using that, and then correcting from there. It's really important to scaffold this up. So you're not, just because you get them organized one time, that doesn't mean that it's instantly going to be fixed. So one of the things I do during study hall, I gather the work for them. Students oftentimes will lose their assignments, and so when they're in the study hall with me, I actually will deliver that to the teachers. As the program starts working, they start getting more confident and the work starts getting in on time on their own. Then it might be, okay, well, we did this, I want you to put this in the folder and I want you to return it tomorrow. And then you kind of do a slow, kind of gradual release of responsibility from there.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, another piece in your program at RHS, I know, is the Gateways to High School summer program that you've gotten started. And I know it's new, but I'd like for folks to be able to hear about that. So would you kind of walk us through how that works, how kids are selected, and the rest of it?
Sure. So the Gateways to High School program was brand new, and what it is, if you kind of picture being a freshman in high school, the prospect of going to a large school where you're 14 years old and you have pretty much, from a physical perspective, grown adults walking around the hall. Seniors in high school are 18 years old sometimes. And so it's a scary proposition for a lot of kids kind of moving in, especially kids who have historically struggled. So one of the main goals is to get students just comfortable with being at the high school, knowing kind of where their classes are, where the different buildings are on campus, where the cafeteria is, kind of that sort of stuff, and just trying to take the fear out of it. So that's one goal. The other goal was to start working on some of these study skills, the organization, the note-taking, the returning your work, those sorts of things. And so we did this in a couple of different ways. One, we actually had people from the community come in and talk to them about local jobs that are available. So we had different employers come in, and while they were doing that, we had them start taking notes. We gave them a little sheet that has the format on how to do that, and then we would collect that, and then we give them feedback on that. We would find kind of low stakes things that they needed to take home and bring back the next day. We actually wanted to make sure that students had a way to access the community and to be a contributing member to that community. So we did some community service with BLM, working on land that was kind of ruined by fire, and so they actually went and installed bird and bee habitat. And so we had speakers come in and talk to them about the birds and the bees and how birds and bees impact the environment as a whole and the food chain. And then of course they were taking notes and doing some readings and assignments based on that. Students all got half a credit for coming in over the summer and doing that. So before they even started their freshman year, they already had one half credit towards graduation in their pocket. And as far as getting buy-in from parents and the students, what I did is I went and talked to the students who were trying to recruit at the junior highs. I called the parents individually and talked to them about what the program was and what we were hoping to do with it. It was amazing how responsive parents were to this. This was a program they really wanted for their students. And it was very effective for these students. They did basically on average about a quarter of a credit better in their first semester than would be expected based on their early warning system data.
Cool. All right, Rob, thank you very much for your time today. It's much appreciated, and we'll hopefully get this viewed by a lot of folks around the county.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Sir.